Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture, and if you're a fan of our interviews, make sure you subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes or Spotify to be able to hear the full-length versions alongside our reviews of pay-per-views, Raw, SmackDown. We also have roundtable discussions and a roundup of the week, complete with a bloody good quiz, of course, on WrestleCulture. For now, though, here is a clip of my interview with Booker T, the full version of which is available as a podcast now, discussing AEW, the Royal Rumble, Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch, and his thoughts on Hulk Hogan.
As an outsider looking in at the likes of AEW, which everyone is talking about at the moment, what do you make of them?
You know, it's huge. It's huge for the wrestling business. It's huge for the wrestlers, especially the independent wrestlers out there that's looking to get, signed and get picked up and get looked at and whatnot, get that big break. It's great for competition. Guys going to have to step their game up. And go out and perform at a higher level if they want to make it to that main event slot. It's good for the business overall. But on the other hand, the Khan family and Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks and all of that crew, all the talk is done. Now they have to go out and produce a great show, and they're gonna have to do it on a weekly basis. And it's going to be a test. It's going to be a test that we're going to see exactly if they can pass it. Hopefully, I'm pulling for them to pass the test because anytime, wrestlers out there around the world that do this, who want to do it and give the fans that ultimate moment, they're looking for somewhere to work. And so another place like A&E, is great for the guys.
Yeah, I think everyone out there seems to think that this will only be beneficial for the wrestling world. As having been a part of two companies who've been in direct competition with WWE, what do they have to do to compete with Vince McMahon's juggernaut?
I think they shouldn't think about competing or anything like that. I think that's the biggest mistake one can make, when getting into a business like this is trying to compete. I think I think WCW would still be here if they would have just stayed in their own lane and did what we did best, and that was, wrestle. I think TNA would still be flourishing right now if they would have never went away from the six-sided ring and just stayed with their young guys and gave those guys the ball and let them run with it. The Samoa Joes, the AJ Styles, and the Bobby Roode, of the world now, that's in WWE. If they would have given those guys the ball, I think that company would still be running today. I think every time someone try to get in and compete, they lose focus on what they really need to be doing, and that's just produce a good television show, alternative television, something different to watch. Coca-Cola, there's Pepsi, there's RC, there's so many, and they all flourish very, very well if they just stay in their own lane.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about them being different from WWE. Would you say that's a key thing that they need to focus on then?
Definitely, I think they need to be different. I mean, I think ECW would still be around, if they had, social media and streaming television today, just because they were so different. Their insurance rate might be a little bit higher, but I think they would still be around. I think they would be huge because they did their own thing. They carved their own niche. Paulie dangerously created something that was just, ECW. And when you could do that, I think you can win. When you go out and try to be like someone else, I think you're doomed from the beginning.
Now, there's been a lot of talk recently about potential WWE stars wanting to get out of their contracts and go to the likes of AEW. Do you think that's going to happen more going forward, or do you think perhaps AEW will focus on, getting people from the likes of Ring of Honor and New Japan?
If they were smart, they would. They would pick from the independent scene very wisely. New Japan Wrestling is very, very prominent today as far as those guys going out and performing at a very, very high level. New faces, I think, what people want. That's why I think reality of wrestling flourishes, because we don't bring in a lot of ex-WWE stars, TNA, WCW. We don't do that. All of our guys are our stars, and I think if AEW, create their own stars, they may have a half of a chance at making it.
Do you think that's the place for Kenny Omega going forward, or do you think perhaps WWE could tempt him?
Hey, man, Kenny Omega right now, he can write his own ticket, man. He can pretty much do whatever he want to do. He could stay on the independent scene and make millions of dollars if he wanted to and be happy. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to be his decision. But right now, Kenny Omega, he's hot. Everybody want him. He can go to AEW. He can go to WWE. Like I say, go to New Japan if you want to go back over there. The guy is really that good, and that's what guys out there need to focus on is creating that image like Kenny Omega has done, like a Chris Jericho has done, and go out there and be able to write your own ticket.
Absolutely. Now, Buck, the Royal Rumble is just around the corner. I will never forget your return at the 2011 Royal Rumble. So who are your predictions going into the years, both in terms of men's and women's? Because it's fairly wide open.
Man, I've never been good at predicting Rumble matches, because back in the day it was a little bit easier. You know what I mean? Because you had your Shawn Michaels. You know what I mean? You had your Stone Cold Steve Austins. You had your certain guys that you liked. And what you didn't like them, whether they were going to win it or not. You just liked them, so you pick them. These days it's a little bit different. A lot of young guys are going to be in the Rumble. You got a lot of NXT guys, coming up as well. Trying to get put there, and it's like Lars Sullivan. You look at a guy like Lars Sullivan. He's a monster. He's definitely a monster. He's a guy that could make a whole lot of noise and whatnot. But it's hard to pick a Rumble match, especially in 2019.
There's a lot of talk surrounding Seth Rollins. Obviously, the terrible news that we heard with Roman Reigns last year. Do you think Seth Rollins could be the guy to step up and fill that role?
Well, I think Seth Rollins has been making a play to fill that role for the last year, I think. Maybe last year and a half. This guy's been going out and having stellar matches. His showmanship has stepped up. His the drama that he goes out and create in matches now has totally picked up the storylines that he go out. The storytelling that he go out and put on in his matches now have went way sky high. So he's definitely putting himself in position to be that guy to go out there and carry the company on his back. And I really think he stepped up. If anybody has stepped up, it's definitely been Seth Rollins.
I want to know your thoughts on Becky Lynch, because her evolution over the last few months has been a joy to watch as a wrestling fan.
It's that one spark, man, that literally, that creates a flame, and she definitely found that spark. She found what it was good, because it's really, really hard, for the women in WWE, because there's so many great talent. And then you got Charlotte Flair walking around, and she is definitely the top dog. So you got to figure out, how do you compete and match up with this? How do you create your own and make people look at you, totally from a different perspective? And I tell you, Becky has done that, not only in the ring, but out of the ring as well. And that's where she has stepped up at, making people. And the thing is, she's believable. When Becky goes out, when she walks out of the curtain, it's literally like a female Conor McGregor walking out of the curtain. She means business. Then she goes out in the ring and she performs at a very, very high level. She's definitely stepped up in so many different ways. She is truly the man.
Yeah, no question. I mentioned your Royal Rumble return earlier. Would you perhaps go back if they ask you, even this year?
If I was to get an invitation in the mail, and I was invited to the Rumble, I would go, just out of respect. But I'm not one of those guys that want to go out and have another match or anything like that. It's truly about the young guys these days. It's their era, and I really want to be able to step aside, let these guys have their era, create their own magic, and create their own stories and legacies, along the way. I've had my time, and I've had a great time, and I still work for WWE, and I'll be there for, until I'm like 60 years old or something like that. But I'm having fun being on the sideline, watching these young guys go out there and do their thing. And if I can create, a few along the way, I feel like I've done my job.
Well, personally, I'd love to see one more Spinneroonie at the Royal Rumble, if you ask me.
I tell you, always never say never, man. And preparation is the only luck you're ever going to have in life. If I had to do a Spinneroonie, I will be prepared to actually do that. Perhaps to that only.
One final thing I wanted to ask you about is the return of Hulk Hogan to the WWE. You've obviously worked with him in the past. He's had his issues away from WWE. What do you make of him coming back?
No, he's back home. everybody make mistakes. He's paid for his mistakes. Hopefully he's atoned for them, and we move forward. We can't. That's one thing we can't do. We can't continue to move backwards in life. Martin Luther King would be turning over his grave. If we continue to move backwards, and in a lot of ways in this life right now in 2019, we are moving backwards. So we got to think about letting the past be the past. Moving forward. Hulk Hogan has done so much in the wrestling business. He's done so much for the WWE. I mean, contracts are, as big as they are in a lot of ways due to Hulk Hogan making the wrestling business as big as he did in the 80s, So for him to be back, is only right for him to be, take his rightful place and, that's be back in the WWE.